There's something strange happening in modern paganism. A religion built on sacrifice, hospitality, discipline, and personal transformation has somehow become a social media aesthetic. Somewhere along the road, from the longhouse to the algorithm, faith became content, altars became backdrops, ritual became livestream. And instead of the old virtues, courage, honor, noble conduct, we got clicks, drama, and a never ending parade of people trying to convince the internet they're the most enlightened Viking in the comment section. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask. When you remove spirituality from a spiritual space and replace it with nothing but outrage, drama, and clout, what exactly are we left with? Are we still heathens? Or are we just the trash collectors of the human condition wearing Mjolnir around our necks? Tonight, we're going to talk about Norsetok and why sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do, at least temporarily, is walk away from the noise. This is I Am Heathen, and so can you.
You learned enough.
I am heathen.
And so can you.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to I Am Heathen, and so can you. I want to first apologize for the long time I spent away from the mic and away from the internet airwaves. Work has been unprecedentedly busy, and while I am grateful for that, I have neglected speaking to all of you. And today, we're going to be taking this from a real interesting place that just brings me so much pain. Norsetok. You heard that right. I'll be committing to a spiritual emetic today by bitching about a hashtag from TikTok. Until last year, I absolutely loved publicly expressing my faith on the same level my Abrahamic cousins express theirs. A Mjolnir out loud and proud around my neck, pride in discussing my faith, pride in discussing the transformative power of faith, and the notion that I have strode hundreds of miles past who I used to be. Today's March 3rd, so that makes us about 2 months and 3 days into 2026. And I've only entered into ritual 3 times. It's been quite a while since I've sat in tranquil silence communing with the gods I worship. I have, however, kept to my oaths, my devotional acts, because they've been ingrained into my routines, and yet my altar is silent. Prayers only to be thought of in my head have gone unvoiced. It's a difficult thing to admit, as to a point it fills me with a sense of guilt for not engaging in my weekly ritual practices. This would be consistent with unshed spiritual baggage from my Abrahamic past, had my Abrahamic past meant a damn thing to me. Norse paganism saved my life. I knew the very moment that realization hit me that I was reborn as a heathen, and it is as a heathen I will leave this world. It's important to state in plain, easy to absorb language that I'm in no way abandoning my faith, but rather I'm becoming more insular about my faith. I am the leader of a kindred, a Gothi mentored by a man who walked in the earlier generations of pagans in America. And after 11 years of practicing this faith, I find myself mustering the ability to throw caution to the wind and no longer care whose feathers I ruffle. When I think critically about my faith, and why continually evolving shitty behavior has hamstrung our faith into a permanent limp, while I openly acknowledge the people I care for who walk the roads I walk, this isn't written about them. It's written about the individuals who utilize faith for personal validation, gain, and such confident ignorance it would make Jim Jones blush. Now, I've left many a broken math teacher in my wake, and if I were to assign a percentage of good pagans versus bad, I would place the good at a whopping 20% and the bad standing 10 toes down at 80. My first forays into public exploration of my faith led me to TikTok, and I found myself learning and growing from what I found to be at the time the most approachable and publicly accessible minds on social media. Eventually, the layers found themselves peeling back to the drama, and for a faith that encourages hospitality and right conduct, I got to see who people really were in the face of perceived, and more often than not, very real slights. Initially, it didn't matter. I knew then, as I knew now, that arguments happen, and I was rather chill about the drama I witnessed, and also after the spats I found myself involved in. To the brave souls on the outside looking in, Norsetok was initially a cadre of folks practicing Norse paganism, expressing their faith, and educating, which is what I found to be more attractive than anything. Families found themselves built, groups with absolutely absurd names like the Forsaken Raven Wolf Clan, the Order of Magi, Nightmare Nation, the Awakened Ravens, the Forbidden Wolf Clan, the Iron Boars Clan, with those being a small sampling among a greatest hits, a veritable who's who of pseudo spirituality. I say pseudo spirituality because all I witnessed from these people was nothing more than grandstanding. People who gleefully flexing how awesome their club was, when all it became was a slightly less cringy version of the Sharks versus Jets dance battle and whose clique got it right. We're going to be taking a quick little commercial break because there's something real special I want to talk about. See you in a minute. What's going on, everybody? I'm Einar Blackthorn, and I've got something really special I want to discuss today. The common hearth. There was a time when the hearth was the center of every home, a place where stories were shared, wisdom was passed down, and a community was forged in the warmth of firelight. The common hearth exists to rekindle that spirit. We're a growing Norse pagan community dedicated to building a living tradition, one that honors the wisdom of the old ways while embracing the realities of modern life. Through discussion, ritual reflection, shared learning, and fellowship, we explore what it means to walk the path of the gods in the present day. At the Common Hearth, you'll find conversations about Norse mythology, philosophy, and tradition, ritual practices and devotional reflections, readings and interpretations from texts like the Havamal and the sagas, thoughtful discussion on building modern pagan community, a space for both seasoned practitioners and newly curious alike to meet and grow together. Whether you've walked this road for years or you've only just begun to hear the call of the old gods, there's always room at the fire. The hearth is lit and the circle's open. Join us now on Facebook and become part of the conversation. Search The Common Hearth and step into the warmth. And now, right back with I Am Heathen, and so can you. I think spirituality came easy to me, not because I grew up spiritual, but rather the importance placed on hospitality and heathenry made finding that much more accessible. My faith intertwined with my job, making being a chef a spiritual vocation. And even in the face of the strongest, more virulent periods of drama, it gave me something to cling to. And eventually the noise became far too much. The constant back and forth, entirely too heavy until I found it utterly deafening. I envisioned it like scenes in action movies where the main character is deafened by a grenade going off, with the ringing in his ears, as though it was my eyes opened wider and I saw with greater clarity. Healthy, if even heated, academic discourse died. Exposure culture became the order of the day, and instead of running toward the drama that people I cared dearly for were involved in, I found myself turning and leaving, keeping contact with the people I cared dearly for off the platform. I fell back into my first love, the thing that made me feel truly special and make me feel like I mattered. Cooking became louder than my faith, and the expression of love through cooking of food eclipsed the notion that it had not been done because I embraced faith, I'd be dead. I took the best piece of advice I ever received, lived with your spirituality, not for it, and became far more private and insular about my path, such to a degree that talking about the faith with friends almost felt alien. A story of feeling broken is usually quite poorly well rounded, without a semblance of a breaking point. And while I was initially hesitant to share what broke me, I think it's important, not for me, mind you, but others on the path who may feel stifled by drama, trapped in cycles of religious trauma, or just genuinely are conflicted about their place in the grand scheme of things. A popular creator had a myriad of very serious, near Harvey Weinstein level allegations levied against him, with blood curdling sprinklings of racism and homophobia thrown in for good measure. Live streams were had, discussions of going to the police were voiced, spaces given for the hurt to voice how they felt. Yelling was had, copious amounts, and I genuinely believed that for fucking once, the community I found myself on the fringes of was finally going to come together and actually do something about a problem that didn't involve people throwing their hands up in resignation as if to say, well, at least they're off the platform. You know what happened? Would you like to guess? Do you have a single idea of the outcome rattling about in your head? Nothing. A morally reprehensible predator who had multiple accusations of misconduct, racism, and homophobia levied against him is still breathing free air. It's not because the victims recanted, no. It's not because insufficient evidence to prove the allegations. Simply put, nothing happened. It was the final nail in the coffin for me that made me realize that day that daily creation of pagan content in the places I had walked had done far more harm than good. I asked myself and the people I care for one very simple question, and it is one I have yet to get an answer for. When you remove spirituality from a spiritual space and replace it with nothing but drama, what are we? Are we pagans? Or are we the trash collectors of the human condition? Where does that leave me now? The answer is simple in all its most glorious forms. I practice my faith by myself. Just a man, his altar, and his gods. I found myself returning back to my spiritual academia, rebuilding and strengthening my knowledge base, and living in the knowledge that I felt chained by the community at large. The fact that I felt compelled to intervene when drama reared its ugly head, but now I live in the knowledge that without the self, community is cheapened. Without the self, community exists nothing more than cattle seeking a green patch of grass in which to chew. The biggest lesson I've taken away from this period of my faith and my life is that I can impart onto others is a truly simple one. Do not allow your sense of self to be overridden by public outcry or the court of public opinion, because when you do, it's a fast working opiate that will weave its way through your system until you're shaking and begging for your next fix with gnashed teeth. Norse paganism, heathenry, Asatru may be extremely community forward, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There is also nothing wrong with building a core group of people you wish to learn and grow within your faith. But when that faith is allowed to be diminished because it's been replaced with nothing more than vitriolic arguing, is it really still faith? I'd like to thank all of you for joining me today for my return to the airwaves. We're going to be recording and scheduling content, and everything will be getting pumped out in regular intervals yet once again. We're going to be returning to live streaming again fairly soon, so guests will be returning to the show as well. I'm glad to be back, and I am glad to continue pushing the conversation of heathenry forward. We'll also be premiering a new segment coming up very soon called The Ashen Letters, where once a month I pose a theme to my followers on social media and I read their stories, their opinions. And for this month is, what does heathenry mean to you? What is this faith? What does this faith mean to you? And so far, we've gotten some rather compelling responses, and I am absolutely honored that my fellow heathens are willing to share with me. And if you'd like to share with me, you can find me on TikTok at Einar Blackthorn. You could find me on Instagram at Hearth and Blade. You can also find The Common Hearth on TikTok at The Common Hearth. That's all the time we have for today, folks. Once again, I am your host, Einar. Let's keep the hearth fires burning. Let's keep the stories of our gods alive. Let us honor and live the way we were meant to. This has been a Blackthorn production. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Did any of you think that I was going to end this episode without our traditional prayer? Wrong. In usual fashion, if you have a drink, raise it high and repeat after me. Hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the ancestors, hail the spirits, and most importantly, hail yourselves.